Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. We are from Group 9 in this class, and today we are going to representing sound shape. Before continuing to the mastery, let me introduce myself. My name is Shafna Adinda. The last digit number is 044. And the first thing that we're going to learn is speech sounds. All right, next. Okay, so apparently there's a transition during the middle to vowel shift. There is producing speech sounds. It is expelled from our lungs, air expelled from our lung, pass through the trachea and then the larynx, and leave the body through nose and mouth. And the producing speech sounds is depend on how we modify the airflow through our body. All right, to the producing consonant sounds. Producing consonant sound is using our articulators such as lip, teeth, and etc. And then there's bilabial plosive, which is b, p, and which is the M1, it's more to the nasal, and B is voiced. And as you can see, you can feel it from your Adam's apple. When you say B, it is vibrating big. And then the P one is unvoiced, because when you feel it in your Adam's apple, it is not quite vibrating as much as B. And then there is vocal folds. What is vocal? Makes consonant sound, voice, or un. All right, to the producing. Okay, shape of the oral cavity and the position of our, when the position of your tongue is high, as for example, it can feel it in your tongue that your position of your tongue is high, like meat. And then there is bar, which is low, like bar. You can feel it that your tongue is in the lower case of your mouth. All right, next. And then there is the tongue move resonance. All right, center. There is meat, sleep, treat. And this is the example, like the short E, which is bit, tin, and lip. And then there is bed, head, and set. And then there is which is cat, tap, and pen. And then there is weather, far, bar. And then there is hot, rock, and mop, look, and cook. And then there's you, which is boot, shoot, and loot. And then there is about, sofa. And then there is bird and hurt. And then there is cut and then there is a movement between one vowel position and another. Example, word house. House is, and then there is form rounded anyway. Rounded is when you make your lips like u, or o is rounded when your lips is pursed. And then there is unrounded, which is like e. What is unrounded anyway? Unrounded is the opposite of rounded, which is when your lips like smiling is e, like that. And then there's the length of the vowel sound. There is long and short. What is the example anyway? The example of long and short is when you say long E like meat, and then there is short E like pin or tip, and etc. Okay, the next material will be explained by my friend.
Okay, first, my name is Rossa and my three last students explain during the great vowel shift, the changes that occur affected the seven long vowels in Middle English. It is E, A, U, A, O, and U. The example is the Middle English pronunciation of name would have been name, and the early modern pronunciation would have been name. The vowel sound in the early modern English pronunciation is higher than that of the Middle English pronunciation. Example, your tongue is closer to the roof of your mouth than when you pronounce the Middle English example, thereby changing the shape of the resonating cavity inside your mouth that determines the vowel sound that is produced. Okay, the R vowels of the Middle English pronunciation A. As a, the A was raised as a consequence of this, the A vowels was raised to take on the quality of the tongue A and this I. This material is presented by.
Okay, so in the next material, the uniformitarian principle in relation. So what is the uniformitarian principle? So basically, this principle states that knowledge of processes that operated in the past can be inferred by observing ongoing processes in the present. As we know, Labov had a theory that speakers were emulating the sounds they heard in the prestigious varieties of English, just as there is evidence of this occurring in the present-day English. According to Machan in 2003 in page 12, Labov's explanation is an example of the application of the uniformitarian principle. Okay, so Roger last had a formula that the most general form of the principle in this way is nothing, which he meant that no given sequence of events, constellations of properties, general law that cannot for some good reason be the case in the present was ever true in the past. Okay, so for example, in present day English, we have open and closed vowel. So we can assume that earlier forms of English also had open vowels and closed vowels too, even though these may have differed from present day English slightly. So goes on to explain more about this uniformitarian principle. Okay, so the uniformitarian principle means that the linguistic forces which operate today and are observable around us are not unlike those which have operated in the past. So, sociolinguistically speaking, this means that there is no reason for claiming that language did not vary in the same patterned ways in the past as it has been observed to do today. So, we can assume that the English of the past to have varied in the same ways as different varieties of English do in the present. We know that the original variation was commonplace, but on the basis of the uniformitarian principle, we can assume. Okay, so that's it for me. So presented by my friend.
Okay, my name is Zahrani Febianti. My illustrator number is 046. So I will be doing my part consequences of the great vowel shift. The obvious consequence of the great vowel shift was that the pronunciation of the long vowels changed, but the great vowel shift peculiarities of English spelling. Previously, you remember, spelling had been largely phonetic. That is, people spelled words in a way that reflected their own pronunciation in their own dialect. A consequence of this was that the spellings that emerged as a result of the pronunciation of words before the great vowel shift was complete. This begins to why explain appears to be no logical connection between the way that a word is spelled and the way that it is pronounced. In fact, seemingly arbitrary spellings of the spelling of the words mice and wine reflects the fact that in the Middle English pronunciation, the vowel sound in each was a pure vowel or monophthong. Had the spelling of these words been fixed after the great vowel shift had occurred, we might expect them to reflect the fact that both of these words are not pronounced with diphthong I. So then we go to writing in early modern English. No developed from any single Middle English dialect, then we are left one way of exploring this issue is to consider Hagen's 1966 sociolinguistic explanation of the processes by which standard vary that there are four stages to the development of a standard. These are selection of norm, codification of form, elaboration of function, and acceptance by the community. Okay, neat way of thinking about how standard English might have developed, it rather oversimplified the process. However, rather than take account of the nuances of standard English development. For example, Hope suggests that the first stage of the process should not be seen as involving the selection of a particular dialect to function as standard, that rather it involved the selection of particular linguistic features from a range of dialects. Selection, therefore, is better thought as of selection. With regard to elaboration, Hagen's framework is again an oversimplification, with the suggestion that at this point in the process a standard had already emerged, which rather then began to use for a range of high function. And to fully explain this, it is useful to incorporate into Hagen's framework some additional stages proposed by Milroy and Milroy. One of these is diffusion, while codification refers to writing and exemplification of rules for the use of the standards. Diffusion refers to the spread of these rules. Milroy and Milroy's other additional stages are maintenance and prescription. So, can you slide down a bit? Or may be described as selection. Linguistic features from a range of dialects are selected as standard forms. Codification, these forms are codified in early dictionaries, grammars, and writing guides. Diffusion, the codified forms are spread via the printing press. Elaboration, the emerging standard forms are adopted in forms of writing that have a high social value. Acceptance, these standards form coalesce into a social dialect that is accepted as valuable and viable language by language users. Maintenance, the new standard is maintained by printing industry. And then last is prescription. Further codification prescribes the standard and a prescriptive ideology preserves it. This description imposes a rough order on the standardization process points out prescriptivism is impossible until standardization has done most of its work, though the reality is likely to involve overlap stages. It should be noted that the description focuses on development of a written standard, though Hagen's framework can be used to describe the development of a spoken standard variety too. Notwithstanding the complexities of involved in the
selection stage of the process, Huggins point out that to choose anyone vernacular as a norm means to favor the group of people speaking that variety. It gives them prestige as norm bearers, and a head start in the race for powers and positions. That is, if you have any questions.